It's time to quickly talk about the Benjamin Moore paint color Windswept, and also, as the color guy, I'm going to give you some other colors that go really well with it, including some trim and woodwork options, as well as other room colors as well. So if you like that, press that like button for me, because that's the only reason that I'll know. On this channel, I do my best to cater to the requests of all my viewers, but now that we're over 100,000 subscribers, there's a lot of different requests that are being put through, so I am going to be prioritizing people that are either YouTube members or Patreons first, just because that's the best way to sort of narrow things down. But that doesn't mean I won't get to you in the comment section, so keep trying. So Windswept is a paint color that is part of the Off-White collection by Benjamin Moore. It is indeed an off-white, more so than just your typical kind of grayed out whites. This is a color that has very clear undertones that actually give you a decent amount of hue, and it almost feels to me like a bit of a peachy white, which is kind of rare. You don't really see a ton of those types of colors being used in interior design, but nowadays the whole red type of color, clay and terracotta, rust, cherry, rose, anything like that, it is popular. It has been for the last year, and I think it'll continue to be so moving forward. So why not represent that in the form of an off-white like this? So on a more technical level, Windswept has an LRV of around 83-84, and that means that's the percentage of light that it reflects. So that would make it a very light looking color in actuality, whether you use it in a room, on the walls, or even as a trim color potentially. And if you are using it as a wall color, I think you'll benefit from that little bit of color, because the much brighter, lighter whites are pretty hard to deal with as a wall color. You're going to require a ton of coats. This one you might be able to get away with too. Probably would still recommend a third coat if it's you or whoever's painting. But that beautiful, creamy, peachy quality is really what sets this apart from other colors. And it's what I thought about when I obviously picked the color pairings for it. I wanted to complement that peachiness rather than double down in it and just pick another bunch of reds to sort of coincide with it. Just you wait, I got some fun colors. But before we get to the wall color pairings, I gotta talk about trim color options, because if you're painting your walls, you gotta do your baseboards as well. I always say it, and I'm gonna continue to say it. They'll just look dirty if you don't freshen them up. So the first trim color I would obviously recommend if you want something really clean and bright and white is Shanty Lace. And it's not one that I often recommend, but whenever you're pairing it with an off-white, whenever you're trying to find a brighter white than any off-white, you should go with the brightest one, in my opinion, because that'll give you some actual discernible contrast, so that trim will still pop even though it's essentially a variation of white on white. But the hue in Windswept is prominent enough that you should notice its coloration when it's being framed with Shanty Lace trim and woodwork. If you wanted a darker trim color for something a little bit alternative, I would actually recommend a mid-tone neutral called Shaker Beige. And this will give you a little more of a subtle kind of appearance. There is clearly a difference in darkness between this and Windswept, but it's not going to be a very deep, rich color like an off black or a chocolate brown. It's a mid-tone, so it will feel a little more streamlined, and in terms of its undertones, it has that beigey quality that Windswept has, but not a ton of that peachiness. And the reason I did that was Shaker Beige just has a little more versatility, so in thinking of it as a trim color, it may continue throughout your home, let's say, or at least your floor. You don't want something that's a little too polarizing on your baseboards. You want something that is a definitive neutral, what Shaker Beige is. Time for some color pairings. And the first one is a pretty interesting one, not one that's talked about too much. It's overshadowed by another very similar color. It's called Winterwood. And this is a mid-tone, earthy, warm gray. It combines gray and a little bit of green. It's an undertone. I wouldn't call this a green. It just has that essence in the background. And that essence is going to complement the peachy quality, the peachy warmth in Windswept. So these two, they are neutral technically, because you have an off-white and a variation of gray, but their undertones are what sort of set them apart and can really make them feel distinct from one another, in addition to the depth difference. You got a mid-tone, you got an off-white. This is a very cool contemporary color that can be sort of a main color in your palette. If you didn't want Windswept everywhere, you wanted it to be in select areas where you wanted something a bit special and bright, Winterwood could be a great neutral just to sort of fill in the gaps in the larger parts of your home. Just be aware that its LRV is around 50, so that's kind of in the middle. You want to make sure you have a decent amount of natural light to sort of bolster it rather than it feeling very bogged down in a more dimly lit part of your home. It comes to life with more light that you throw at it. Now our next color doesn't really need as much light. It sort of lives on its own with its vibrancy. It's similar but different to Winterwood, where it has green but really no gray to speak of and a little bit more warm, kind of like Windswept. The color I'm talking about is Mosquite, and this is another mid-tone, but you can just tell it has a little more of a warm zestiness to it that makes it feel energized, a very different feel from Winterwood. But they do have very similar levels of depth, and they both do have varying levels of green. This one is bringing green to the forefront. So this is directly going to complement Windswept, and it's going to enhance the peachiness found in there, almost making it feel like a light, warm, rosy sort of off-white. And I think that interaction is extremely fun. So anywhere you're not looking for a grounded color, you want something a little more energetic, this would be a great choice. And then our third color pairing, interestingly enough, is another one of those mid-tone colors, right around a 51, 52 LRV. And this one is doubling down on that peachy quality. It's called Crazy For You. This is a very nuanced, rosy mid-tone, and it sort of feels like it's leaning towards coral, but it doesn't have a ton of that fiery orange that coral can sometimes have. It does a great job at giving you this balancing act of warm and cool, and I find that's nice in this palette because even when we're talking about those last two colors, they're kind of cool and warm leaning. So this is one that's right in the middle in terms of temperature, but undoubtedly you do have that beautiful pink quality that feels fresh, and it'll tie in with Windswept pretty nice, or it'll just completely complement Winterwood and Mosquite in a really fun way. So you have options. You can go a little more monochromatic with the sort of peachy leaning colors, or you can lean into the greens and just go in that direction, or you can combine them for something a little more dynamic and fun. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. And we got more videos right over here. Well, I guess it's just a video, but hopefully you'll watch another after that one.